Hey everybody, I'm Jacob Mangley, and you are watching Comics Corner. Right here on the newly rechristened Harry Osborn's Fu Manchu. And if you're wondering why the name changed, it's both because this is a comics channel and because seriously, look at that thing. Just comedy gold. And it wasn't like a joke or had anyone tell him it was stupid either. Like, no one commented on how god awful a walking hedge maze putting on a pirate captain's beard stash looked. Just we're not here to talk about Harry Osborn's ridiculous mustache. Today, at least, we're here to talk about Spider-Man Blue. Note his outfit actually isn't blue in this, though it is on the cover. Spider-Man Blue is another home run from the wonderful creative team of Jeff Loeb and Tim Sale. The two worked together at DC doing two wonderful miniseries, Superman for All Seasons and my favorite Batman story of all time, The Long Halloween, which I'll definitely get to because it's just a masterwork from start to finish. But they also did some DC work, Marvel work. Granted, Jeff also did some solo work for Marvel, but the less said about Ultimates and the Hulk, the better. We're here to talk about him before he lost his mojo. The two worked together to create the Colors quadrilogy. The fourth one being produced way after the others and more to focus and having a slight difference than the rest. As I haven't read it, but I have read the other three produced around the same time, all of which focusing on the early days of superheroes. In this case, the Hulk, Daredevil, and Spider-Man. Hulk's first outing, the first few weeks of Daredevil's career, and while it's a little later than the rest, due to the other theme I'll get to in a second, Spider-Man's early college years, i.e., the period in real life when Steve Ditko left the book and John Romita took over. The senior, not the junior, though both of them are amazing at drawing Spidey. It also focuses on grief, as it focuses on how each of the three heroes is coping with losing the loves of their lives, two of which more recently. Betty Ross for the Hulk and Karen Page for Daredevil. For Peter Parker, though, he's just more. It's more. He's far moved on at this point, having married Mary Jane Watson before Joe Quesada decided to take away the marriage for completely asinine reasons, despite the fact that he could just gotten a goddamn divorce and would have aged the character. It's not like other Marvel heroes haven't gotten a divorce. And God, if I talk about one more day, I'm gonna get a brain aneurysm. If you want to see more about that clusterfuck, then Kara did an amazing massive review of it. But yeah, I hate one more day. Let's move on to the good stuff. So on this story in particular, Peter Parker, it's Valentine's Day. Peter Parker's thinking of his funny Valentine, Gwen, and how they first fell in love on that day. Or rather, how they almost didn't. That has almost no relevance to the story, but really, it's just an excuse to jump back into Peter's college days while having a nice little. If you're wondering what happened to Gwen, how she died, and who done it, well, a abridged version is basic. Well, it actually involves where the story started. The story starts with Peter as Lois, with his father, with his kind of sort of acquaintance Harry Osborn. We'll get to him in a moment, but you know, the guy with the Fu Manchu mustache and his equally ridiculous haired father Norman revealing himself as the Green Goblin. Exactly where the Romita Lee run began. It's a great scene and a great way to open things. And then once Peter beats him, the story evolves from there. Norman's in the hospital, having lost his memory, being the Goblin for now. And as for what happened when he regained it, well, there was a fight. He regained it briefly, and then when he regained them fully, went on a mad rampage that ended in Gwen Stacy's death and Norman falling on his own sword, i.e., cool-looking glider thing. We'll talk about it more in depth, but yeah, the Green Goblin is definitely my favorite Spider-Man villain, and I intend to do a list of those coming up. Stay tuned, true believers. We're not here to talk about that. How awesome. No, and honestly, it's more just Peter trying to having a crush on Gwen, romancing her a bit, while he also bonds with Harry. Visiting the hospital over a few weeks, he really becomes true friends with Harry, which leads into them moving in together. Basically, the story's a retelling of a bunch of classic Stan Lee and his second partner on Spider-Man, John Romita tales. And they are all, and while Ditko will always be iconic, Romita did help reinvent Spider-Man's status quo, giving him friends, which was better than being laughed at, and slowly he developing Flash Thompson to slightly less of an asshole. Oh yeah, Flash is still around. He got a full scholarship. So did Peter. Good old funky go fuck yourself, Flash Thompson. So Peter deals with moving in, buying a motorcycle, hanging around with Gwen. Oh. And did I mention the most important part? Well, a few guys are trying to kill him. Yeah, a bunch of his foes are being released, though in this story, rather than in the canon, some mysterious person is releasing all of them. Either releasing them from prison or setting it up so the villains can fight Spider-Man for some unknown purpose. But who would test him like this? Who would hunt him like this? And if you know Spider-Man, I just gave you the big effing clue, and if you don't, well, I'm keeping it under wraps. But he's a great villain, and honestly, all of them get a chance to shine. Cool battles with the Rhino, Lizard, and the Vultures ensue. So if you're hungry for some Vulture after Spider-Man Homecoming, Blue has you covered. And yeah, I said Vultures. And a story I really hope to read the original of. Basically, the Vulture was poisoned by a guy who'd earned his trust, Blackie Drago, who decided to become the new Vulture and use his youth. And of course, Vulture got better, broke out, decided to get his revengeance, and it was Toomes versus Drago, and it was awesome, and it's done especially great here. It's just a nice cavalcade of Spider-Man's best foes. Not the most complicated battles ever, but fun ones nonetheless, and gives you a nice taste of what you're expecting. Speaking of which, let's get to the supporting cast. Are they what you're expecting? Well, from most adaptations, pretty much. Including Spider-Man's greatest challenge, Mary Jane Watson, who here is in her original form as kind of a flighty party girl Peter dated occasionally before settling on Gwen, and the two remained friends before eventually a long courtship, some false start, her tragic backstory, which I'll get to eventually, but yeah, it's a good one. And her revealing she knew his identity the whole time. Again, I'll get to that. And them eventually marrying before Joe Quesada decided to tear them apart, and I already gritted my teeth at that, so let's move on. She's just a great fun here, and it provides a little romantic tension, even though we know pretty much how the story's gonna go, and who ends up winning ultimately overall, even if it took one of them falling off a bridge to do it. That sounded better in my head. Gwen herself doesn't have a lot of personality. I mean, I think this is the work that added her being more of a science whiz. Like, well, I think it was a little in the original comics. This one hammers it in a little bit, but for the most part, she's just sort of there. Though to Loeb Sale's credit, they do show why she and Peter get along so well. She's well read. She likes science. She's beautiful. She's charming. You can see why Peter would fall for her, and even if they don't devote nearly enough time to fully developing her as I wish they did, you do get the sense of who she is through this and the sometimes melodramatic narration. Hedge Maze Head, aka he of the Fu Manchu, aka Harold Lyman, now he's around in the comics right now, is Peter's best friend here. The two bonding over a few weeks, and Harry deciding, hey, you want to live together? And a bromance was born. Till Harry got on the drugs, went insane, blamed Peter for his father's death after seeing it, finding out he was Spider-Man, became another goblin, got better, got worse. His is a long story that thankfully has a happy ending, but yeah, it's kind of a tangled mess. The point is, they're bros for life, and they are back to that again recently. And he compliments Harry well, Peter well, being more compliment, being a little suaver, a little dandier, and immediately jumping at the good time, fun-loving, go-getting, and party girl Mary Jane Watson. And then there's Funky Flash Thompson. That's a thing. Stan Lee actually thought to call him in his old age. But Funky Flash Thompson's still an asshole here, but to Loeb Sale's credit, they do show his hidden depths. His love of Spider-Man, his childlike love of Spider-Man, and the fact that he realizes, due to a combination of everyone preferring Peter, which makes sense to me. It's the same reason I kind of scoff at a lot of people saying, oh, well, the comics got so much worse when Ditko left. I'd take a little goofiness and Peter actually having good times and good moments along with the misery and having friends that also gives him another reason to hide his identity over, I just have my aunt whose heart can't take it. Which, by the way, a story by J. Michael Straczynski kind of showed that was pretty much bullcrap. And that writer should have had him tell her long before this. But I digress. Flash realizes after some bank loot falls into his lap and then he nearly gets killed, he thinks, what have you done with your life? And decides to enlist. Which would lead to him becoming a better person, becoming friends with Peter, and generally becoming a much more tolerable person than the giant asshat I just want to keep punching till he passes out. Well, I'm not going to kill him. He becomes Agent Venom, and Peter's best friend after Harry when Harry lost it before he got better and got the psychological help he desperately needed. But I still want to punch the little turd in the face. Still, though, as a contrast to Peter, as well as a nice little running background subplots, Aunt May's also far more tolerable here than she was in the other comics. Giving Peter the money for his motorbike to impress Gwen, which, yeah, he did have a motorcycle back then. He eventually sold it. I know that because I read a story, because Peter Parker can't have his nice things, but what can I tell you? But yeah. Just kind of showing up for a supportive scene as well as telling him to move in with Harry go ahead and move in with Harry, having already known about the offer, with Peter naturally waffling. The writing here is pretty good, though I do say the narration lacks a bit, and as I said, Gwen isn't fairly defined, but the dialogue's good, and it's a good fun to just little jaunt through Spider-Man's head, and any inconsistencies with canon can be chalked up to, well, that's how Peter remembered it. And even if that's not how it happened. So it gives them a nice little out to how canon the story is. Probably not, but it does provide a nice bit of nostalgia. And the art, as always with Tim Sale, is just gorgeous. Just, mwah, mwah, mwah. I would eat that art. Just pure magic and purely well done. Overall, well, probably not the best Spider-Man storyline of all time. Spider-Man Blue is a solid B in my book. Really well done. A few flaws. Hell, I'll bump that up to an A-. A few flaws, a bit light on content, but a really fun storyline that gives you a nice slice of a well-loved period in Spider-Man's history, and also has a nice little ending with Mary Jane understanding that even if he's moved on and is happily and married with her, he's still always going to mourn Gwen in some way. And she's fine with that, like any supporting person to anyone who's lost someone and is trying to move on would be. And that's the best you can ask for. And this is one of the best Spider-Man stories you can ask for. May not be the best of all time, but sure is amazing. Don't forget to like and subscribe. And until next time, I'll see you next time, true believers.